What's going on, everyone? So I just recently found out that there are these million dollar companies that can't pay their 6K invoices, and yet they can spend millions of dollars on advertising, and yet they still can't pay a 6K invoice. Just a few $1,000s, you know, to an actual $1 million company. That would just be some change in their couch cushions. But looks like they're not actually $1 million companies.
And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
So before I get completely into the subject of these $1 million companies basically crashing, I also want to get to the fact of, I'm talking about distributors and manufacturers. I swear, they be calling people for an invoice that was like 2 years ago, and then when we find that invoice, it was already paid. So they just lost the money somewhere, and then they'll go looking for it on the computer and they'll be like, oh yeah, we found it. What the hell? Like, these companies, they have teams. They have an actual department dedicated to this stuff. And at my shop, it's just 2 people and a box and boxes of files. I'm sure that is the same for every other place because everything is all jotted down on paper. I mean, the cannabis industry is slowly getting into all digital, but they sure as hell ain't even close to there yet. Well, no, they are getting close. I actually just seen that they're becoming QR codes on packaging now. So you can just scan the QR code and up pops your COA. So hopefully now that means they won't have to keep printing out COAs, and now the customer can just have it right then and there. Hopefully that cuts down some paper, because we definitely need it. If I were to show you the stack of just 2 months worth of COAs, y'all would go crazy. If there are any environmental friendly people out there, you will be surprised at how the cannabis industry is just not eco-friendly really in any way. Or at least the distribution side of it. So now kind of going into these $1 million companies not paying invoices, it's not just them also, but there are smaller companies out there that are struggling as well. I don't know if it's necessarily that they can't pay their dues, but like I've said in a previous video, a lot of these companies, they've had to make layoffs. Speaking of layoffs, MedMen, like I said before, they were already making layoffs in their corporate offices, and now it's actually rippling out to their dispensaries. One of my homies that works for a MedMen-owned dispensary said that 2 managers got laid off just because they couldn't pay them. So you want to talk about companies not paying invoices? If they can't even pay their own employees, what makes you think they're gonna pay invoices at all? I mean, I'm even hearing that there are companies that haven't paid invoices for like the past 2 years. And I mean, which now makes complete sense on why they're asking for invoices from 2 years ago, but then we paid them, so I don't know what the fuck y'all are doing. And then just to talk more specifically about that 6K invoice, so I think it's the distributor for Ganja Gold. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the company Ganja Gold. I think they're a California-based company. I think they're from LA, but they were around in the Prop 215 era, and they killed it then because they had, I don't know if they created it. I'm sure lots of people were doing that already before, but it's called a tarantula joint. And even another company, Caviar, kind of did the same thing. It's basically just a joint with usually about 1 gram or 2 grams of flour in there, and then it is rolled in or dipped in CO2 oil or rolled in a wax, and then it's got keef dusted on the outside. So it's like a very loaded pre-roll, basically. That is pretty much what they do, and that has obviously gotten a lot of popularity, and a lot of people have invested into that company. And they have spent millions of dollars on their advertising, on billboards, on swag for just people in general, and you know, a bunch of other stuff. And yet they can barely even pay the money for the advertisement. Like, how can you guys, I don't even know what the logic is there. People are struggling right now, and it's only the beginning of 2020, man. Holy crap. I really hope it doesn't continue to be this way, or at least I hope these big companies just get the fuck out of here, really, because I know, at least from one source that I've seen, I don't really remember where I seen it from, but they thought it was going to be a $20 billion industry, and it's looking a little bit more like 10 billion. Obviously, their projections were way off, so yeah, obviously these companies now have to make these layoffs. I mean, it's sad to see the smaller companies and the mom and pop businesses being affected by this, but as for these big businesses, that's what you guys get. Y'all fucking deserve it. And this is what happens when you have just big money that has no idea what is going on in the cannabis industry or what has ever happened in the cannabis industry, period. And then they're just gonna come in acting like they know shit, and then there you go. I mean, this is kind of a little bit of kind of a rant, but not really. I'm just speaking fact. The only part of the industry that I have seen that has not been affected really are the dispensaries. Like the actual dispensaries that are not MedMen or any of those bigger name or bigger money companies. At least for the shops that are in my area, there hasn't really been. So I haven't personally seen any layoffs that have been happening because of what's going on right now. But you know, only time will tell. As it is, big money has already been changing ordinances, so we'll just leave it at that. But of course, you know, I want to give a big shout out again to the Blacklist XYZ and shit, the Blacklist 2.0. I think he's got like two or three accounts that are associated with the Blacklist community. Definitely, if you guys have an Instagram, go check them out. The Blacklist XYZ. If you really want some inside information, if you want just community generated content, people from the cannabis industry generating the inside content, then follow the Blacklist. Really, do yourselves a favor. But you know, as usual, be sure to like, subscribe, comment. If you guys have any, you know, insider knowledge about what's going on in the cannabis industry, definitely let the Blacklist know, let me know. Definitely keep all of that information circulating, because we need people to be educated about what's really going on in the industry. This is why I do these videos. That's why the Blacklist posts what they do. So let's keep the soul of the industry going, please. Please. Oh, and of course, every Friday at 4:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, me and the community have our conversation about the various topics that are in the cannabis community, as well as they ask me their cannabis related questions, and me as your Emainey cannabis consultant will do my best to answer them. Alright, y'all. See you in the next video. Deuces.